There he is, my partner in crime, Danny Bacon. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, living the dream, as they say, Danny. Living the dream. What was nice is we sort of started with the background so that folks had an idea of what it is that we're going to be doing going forward. We wrapped up the last event on the NOWT Trail last week, and moving forward, there are still lots of events that are going on. And what this is going to become, which it has always been, which is the Power Hour, with our new sponsor, Pow Castings, we are going to be able to brand it in such a way where it is going to be the Power Hour. So really excited to have Pow Casting on as our sponsor. And Dan, I know you've been working diligently behind the scenes on an event that is going to be happening next year. You had a meeting again tonight. Did you want to share some valuable information, some exciting news?
Absolutely. Up here, I think the cat's kind of out the bag. But we are bringing a walleye event to the town of Spanish. We're coming back to the North Channel with the walleye event, and we're all very excited with that. So stay tuned. Look for the North Channel Walleye Open as we build up with that, and our team, which thankfully we got Scotty on board to help us out, and Nick Huxon, of course, and everybody else that's been helping us. We're jumping on board. Sponsorships we've already been lucky to get some. So big shout out to the Trading Post and Garnet's Rentals and places like that. So as we build up, we're going to keep bringing everybody on, and I'm super excited. It's been something I've been wanting to do for the last 5 years, and all of a sudden a month ago we said I'm doing it, and here we are.
Here we are, exactly. And again, it all starts really when you meet the right people. And I will say this weekend we have the Made in Canada tackle show that's going to be going on in Woodstock. Not to say I met wrong people, but as soon as I met Brad, we hit it off. As I said, we had a good chat at our OFC Nation retreat last year. Spent 3 days out on the water and managed to come up, which is something that truly I'm extremely proud of. I know Brad is too. But the cool thing is it is focusing on Made in Canada tackle vendors. And what we're actually trying to do, which is actually happening because we see it firsthand, is we're bringing the Canadian tackle industry together, which I think is really, really important. And we have our special guest tonight who is also part of that industry, who's going to be coming on here talking about a variety of events, including one that's going on this weekend. But before we get to that, as mentioned, Dan, going forward, we're going to be talking about a variety of derbies, a variety of tournaments. So if you're a tournament director and you want to bring a little bit more notoriety, get your tires pumped, and just give your sponsors, your anglers, your participants, your volunteers a little bit more promotion, this is the platform through which we can do it. And I'm again joined by my special co-host Danny Bacon, who's going to be joining me hopefully in every episode going forward. So again, if you're interested, please reach out to either Danny and I. We'd love to have you on the show. But for tonight, we're going to be talking to the one and only Kris Bain. And if you know Kris, you know him because of this.
Absolutely. Best jigs of all.
I know you use a lot of junction tackle.
I do, and we know Kris is going to be one of our sponsors coming up, so I'm also very excited to have him on board for that. And I've known Kris for a lot of years. He does enormous amount, a lot of work. It was nice to have him on. I know what he's been doing with what we're going to talk about with the last few years, and plus his tackle business and everything else. So yeah, and he likes to talk, so less work for us.
Right on. Well, without further ado, let's bring Kris in and let's talk about junction tackle and everything Algoma when it comes to the North Shore events. And Kris, I want to share the poster just briefly. I'm going to be doing it as we speak to you. First and foremost, welcome to the show. It has been a long time you and I have had this opportunity to go live and talk on this kind of platform. Dude, I miss you, man.
Hey, I missed you too. Thanks for having me there, Scotty. Hey, Danny, how's it going? I was just chatting with you there earlier today, and it's a pleasure to be here, fellas.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, I know you are a busy man, and with everything that you have on the go, and of course, when I share this poster, we're going to get to know all of the events that you help coordinate. Now, are you sort of the tournament director for all of these events, Kris, or how does that all work?
So more recently this year, we've been acting more as a committee amongst the group that are organizing it. In the past few years leading up to this one, I've been kind of the lead director and organizer for the event with a couple of committee members alongside. So I'm pretty actively seeking out sponsorship and organizing the events and make sure the rules are followed, all those types of things, promotion, all of the things that are entailing of tournament, advertisement and running them. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, that's for sure.
100%. And of course, looking at some of these venues, it immediately makes me want to ask: are they local sticks that get involved in these events? I see fathers and sons. I see families. Like at the end of the day, this is a grassroots trail that
Yes.
provides a great opportunity for not only local anglers, but perhaps anglers that want to test the waters when it comes to the tournament circuit and what tournaments are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really nice mix. You have families that come out, husband and wife teams, father son teams. And the plus side of it is too, you can fish it with an adult and two children as well. So you can go up to three people. We do that enough times with my father and son as well because he's still under 14 years old. So it kind of gets you, it grooms the younger and less experienced tournament anglers and exposes them in a positive manner to what it's like to experience competitive fishing. It really is, I think, a necessary platform to expose some of our less fortunate and perhaps even like not necessarily that they don't have enough, but less fortunate to experience or be able to travel and go to a tournament trail like the NOWT or other varieties of tournament trails down south. It makes it a little bit more challenging, right? So here we can offer something right in our backyard for anybody to join in at a very, very reasonable rate as well. It's $100 entry fee that includes your big fish for the day. All of our great sponsors pitch in kind and cash donation. Helps us bolster some of our prize pools. So at the end of the day, you're going home with a couple of bucks in your back pocket too, if you happen to get lucky in the top three, or catch the big fish of the day as well, right? We have a wide range of lakes, as you can see in the poster that was provided there, that are ranging near Sault Ste. Marie area, in the St. Mary's River, just like the last NOWT event as well. The same big water, the same big scary water that everybody is reluctant to go on. Don't get me wrong, it is big and scary, but it's really not once you start getting out navigating it and playing the conditions and just working with the confidence levels you have. But you see a lot more boats show up to our inland fisheries. We have some very big reservoirs for this region that are in our tournament trail, and you may not even run into a boat the whole day when you're out there fishing. On average, we're getting around 20 boats per event. We've had events as high as mid 30s, and these are teams, team events. So you're getting, 60, 70 anglers out to your bigger events. And then your smaller events, you might see, 25, 30 anglers. It just depends. Sometimes people are fair weather fishermen, and don't want to come out and freeze their kids and get wet and whatnot. But we do have a really cool feature in our area here for bass fishing. It's open all year in our region here. So a lot of people seem to forget that right here in Algoma, we're blessed to have an all year season for bass. And it is an excellent fishery. It's a trophy bass fishery up here. It doesn't see a ton of pressure. The fish aren't super educated like some of the Lake Ontario and Simcoe bass. So anybody can go out and catch a 20-pound bag on a tournament day. That's for sure. That's a given. So that's the cool part. You see a lot of new winners at different events. Yeah, you may see the same few local sticks or the ones that are a little more serious that might come out and be in your top five consistently. But you always see somebody come out of the woodworks that just figures something out that day or is super lucky and just, hammers a big sack of bass. That's the cool part of it.
Danny, did you graduate possibly from these events? Like obviously, where you are now with the NOWT and various other tournaments that you participate in, is this where you got your start in this kind of trail, this kind of system?
When I was a kid, we used to have a small event that was locally held, and that was my first taste of tournament fishing. I think I was about 8 or 9 when I first got into that, and I did really well in the youth area and stuff like that, and loved it. But it kind of dwindled away, and we didn't have much going on. So for myself, once I got back into any kind of competitive fishing, I dove right into deep water right off the bat. Like I was.
He looks so serious. Why so serious?
I know, so serious.
He looks so serious.
That's his blue steel face.
I tell you, Mara-Lisa, she is one lucky gal. Look at the face. Look at that, man. I'm telling you, that inspires to be on any magazine, anywhere. But again, to get back to once Dan gets his internet back and running, I guess I will talk to you because, of course, there is a lot to talk about. What are some of the takeaways? Like, I mean, obviously you started on May 5th. May 25th on Shibboleth Lake, and then it moves from there. The venue for this weekend that's coming is the same lake that had an event on.
So we had to make a little bit of a venue change. The sponsor that we have over at Lake Matinenda campground is super awesome. Bruce Spratt. He invited us back open arms. He really wanted to have a 2-day fall brawl on beautiful Lake Matinenda. It's a big reservoir. It's actually a sister lake to Chibolo Lake, so it's very widespread. Gin clear water, has smallmouth and largemouth bass in it, and he just welcomed us with open arms. We had an amazing turnout in the spring event. His wife put on an awesome barbecue for us and everything like that. They just roll out the red carpet. The facilities there is great. The campground is excellent. And you're talking, oh geez, I don't know what the square hectares are of that water body, but it's a good sized lake that you can run all over it and not really see boats other than when they're passing by. Couple sneaky things that some people do, and maybe I shouldn't spill the beans, but some of them do dive into the back lakes that are located off Matinenda, into the moons, Little Moon and Big Moon Lake, and they also have smallmouth and largemouth in them as well. Matinenda Lake's more well known for its lake trout and whitefish, but it has literally thousands of bass in the lake. It's just crawling with them, so it makes it for a pretty fun day.
Incredible. Well, as I said, looking at the topographical map of that lake, you've got some really deep pools. I have had the pleasure of going through before going live with you, just to do a little bit of research on the lake. To your point, you see lots of big lake trout, you see lots of big walleye, lots of smallmouth bass. Is there pike and muskie in that lake too?
Not that lake, no. So one of the neighboring lakes that we also have events on, Lake Lozon, it has pike and muskie, smallmouth bass, lake trout, and whitefish. And actually, I caught a decent sized muskie there in August 24th event on Lake Lozon. It wasn't a giant by anyone's standards, but my dad and I, it was a pretty cool moment. I got a 47 incher, like 20-pound plus muskie. And you're in the prime zones of hunting down big smallmouth, and you get into a rod stopper like that, on a homemade bait too. I made my own. Sometimes I make my own spinner baits and stuff for bass. So I created my own spinner baits and stuff and fill my box with them. And you got literally on my first cast on this one elongated point area near some deep water. My rod just stopped about 3 cranks in on a long cast, and I thought, oh man, there's that 7-pound smallmouth I was looking for today. But it was a 47-inch muskie, and it still made the boat, and it was a cool catch together. Yeah, he was a little jittery. My dad has never really seen many muskie in person, so the sheer length and teeth and all that on them, he was having a bit of a heart attack in the boat when that thing started thrashing around. So
cool.
Pretty cool.
Now, I'm intrigued to ask because we had the luxury of meeting Mike Hudson of the Trading Post.
Yes.
When we did the Sioux event for the NOWT, And Lauren, who walked us through the store, I had to ask because it intrigues me. It's great to have sponsors, but you really don't get to know how the sponsors feel when it comes to sponsoring an event. Now, you're not only a sponsor, but you're a tournament director. You're very much involved in the entire trail.
That's
What
right.
does it mean to Junction Tackle to be a sponsor of this grassroots events that you're hosting?
But personally, it's something that hits home, really close to home. As a young angler growing up in a fishing family, I remember fishing my first derbies, most of them being ice fishing derbies and stuff up in Wawa area. So I was born and raised in Hawk Junction. Hey Nick, how's it going, buddy? Um, and that's why I've given my family business the name Junction Tackle as a nod to my hometown. So being able to kind of inject back into fun, competitive grassroots angling and sports means the world. Because I remember winning my first Zebco combos and tackle packs from guys that would make jigs in the garage and the old school stuff back in the 80s and it was out of this world when you would walk out as a kid and you'd have that brand new fishing rod and that tackle kit and and it just kept the fire burning and actually just made it grow and grow. So like for me, being able to give back and every kid getting a prize from me that morning, or my son Daniel handing those out to the kids at the launch in the morning, it just fills up my heart. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It just it's pure fulfillment. It comes full circle.
That's awesome. Danny, I'll ask you because, of course, this is in your backyard, and for lack of a better way of saying it, geographically, it's not that far down the road. I understand, the CSFL, Renegade, and the Budweiser, and various other tournaments that are big down here, and what it means to the anglers. But being from the north, explain to me the importance of these events as an angler.
Well, they're fantastic. I mean, especially everybody wants to be competitive. So you were able to say, oh, here's an event. Well, I don't want to fish that kind of water. I want to do walleye. No problem. There's bass events going this way. There's bass events going this way, and it's nice to be able to encourage people to go that way. And especially when the directors, you can just say, just call him up. He'll help you out. He'll make sure because I'm sure Kris has ran into that problem. We've all ran into that problem where. Well, I don't know that body of water. I've never been to Lozon. I've never been to Matinenda. I heard him talking about Matinenda and obviously talking about Bruce. And Bruce is a great guy. I spent a lot of time with them. They do a great job of helping people out. So you can encourage that. And that's one of the biggest appeals for us is that we know everybody's going to be very helpful. We know it's going to be very encouraging to bring views. And it's just getting people to reach out, really. And once you talk to people, they have no problems. And they find a direction that they want to go into.
That's awesome. Kris, off the top of my head, of course, I've got a million questions in regards to how your tournaments are organized, how they're ran. Are there any restrictions to any of your events when it comes to electronics, when it comes to age? If you're a professional angler, this, that, or anything else, are there any restrictions when it comes to your events?
No, so we don't have any restrictions other than just some of your normal. We follow a lot of the normal rules and guidelines, especially when it gets down to um, no live bait, that kind of thing, having a proper working live well, aeration, all that. Electronic restrictions, no, doesn't mean anything. You can load your boat as much as you want. I have electronics on my boat. I do have really nice Garmin units and stuff like that on my boat. But I'm kind of still a little bit behind the curve. I'm still running the OP, the PS22 forward facing on there, and lots of times it doesn't get turned on. And I know maybe that's to a fault. I'm pretty old school and gritty that way, where I'll make 1,000 casts to your 999, and I'll outwork you. And I'm just a bullheaded person like that. So, and then too, obviously spending a little extra time in the water, which, sometimes I'm blessed with, and other times I'm not. We've made a recent move to Sault Ste. Marie, so some of the family's time is a little bit tighter, and with the adjustments and whatnot, but we still get out on the water. And yeah, that part of it is completely wide open. If it'd be cool. I tried encouraging some professional anglers and stuff, and they got super busy schedules just to get them to come out and partake. It'd be pretty cool to have a personality or somebody that has some accolades, elite accolades in the bass, series and stuff like that. But one day.
Two anglers? Is it strictly two anglers per boat, or can you have more than two?
So you can go two adults. You can go by yourself if you absolutely have to. We always encourage the team thing, just because it is a team event. So you can go two adults, and then you can go one child 14 years and under. What we call, once somebody reaches about 15 years old, we're calling that's your full-time partner. What we're trying to do is kind of create that tournament shadowing effect. Encouraging positive experiences and any of the questions and thoughts of doubt maybe that these youth may have when they're getting to emulate it with another adult or two other adults that kind of already have it figured out. Tournament strategies, culling fish, where to go, how long to stay on a spot, what type of weather patterns you're working with, moon phases, those sorts of things you start talking about, obviously seasonal changes, and the kids can pick up on it. They're really smart, like they pick up on those things. They're not just casting aimlessly, they can pick up on a pattern. And then they can, if they wish, maybe implement that down the line. And if they have same interests, maybe stay the course with the Algoma North Shore Bass Series, or, maybe take that to another level and try out maybe some of the opens or bigger events, and maybe try cracking the top tier. Maybe that could instill a dream. Or maybe some of them deviate over to the walleye tours that we have. There's a lot of really positives out of it, and having the kids involved. I think anyway.
Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of the AYA tournaments that NOWT ran as well, but there's also a whole host of other venues that had AYA type events where you were able to get that influx of youth and get the youth involvement in some of these tournaments. And I want to say some youth might be apprehensive. They might shy away from it. Of course, a lot of the events down this way, unless it's driven by a fish and game club, usually, it just, kids are, I don't know, they're overwhelmed. And I love the idea of what it is you're running up there, where youth are able to be a part of the daily event, the weekend event, whatever it is, because they're in the boat. They're welcomed. It's something that you are pushing. And I think we need to get back to that because, as I said, we have lots of competitive venues, NOWT, as we mentioned, CSFL, Renegade. There's a whole bunch of them that, those elites that want to participate, that are great sticks. They just want to see how good they are, pay a little bit more because, the payout is that much more as well. But you've kept it to that grassroots. And as I said, we go back and we look at all the venues. Any key takeaways this season? Because this is the last, I believe this is the last event on your series. Any key takeaways from all of these events that happened this year?
I'd have to say this year was one of the more challenging years getting teams out. The biggest takeaway is I guess the attitude of gratitude from all the anglers showing up, knowing each other, like the repeats, and knowing each other on a first name basis. And it's not that we have that few people coming around. It's just like, anglers interacting with one another, the community vibe, the sharing and the talking, the laughing, like the laughing across the area at the boat launch in the morning. Yes, there's some seriousness and maybe some excitement and jitters that 5 minutes or 2 minutes to blast off, and then it ticks down from 1 minute down. The biggest takeaway I have to say personally is the amount of camaraderie that I see amongst the anglers and the teams. That's the coolest part right there. Personally, that's the biggest takeaway.
Right on. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I know going back to Chris's events, and I do know quite a few anglers that fish it there, and they tend to take this pretty seriously. This means a lot to them, and they're very adamant to it. They do a lot of work to it, and it's nice to see that. And we also have, we have our own guys that actually dip into that from time to time, and not just regular guys. Steve Gravel was won the championship last year in the LWT, and he's fished numerous events with Chris and loves doing them when he does them with his kids, and so it's good to see. Knowing all these years, like I said, he's very open. He's very helpful with Evan. I know the group that he's got and that going to all these systems and stuff like that. And unfortunately for myself, it does touch our scheduling. Lots of times there's an event happening while we're off to another event somewhere else, or we're off to something going on like that. So eventually, I'm going to get there to fish an event, and I'm going to try and beat Kris because I fished many times. I've been a lot of time in Kris, so I think he'll run for his money to bug him.
That's awesome.
I look forward to it.
Right on.
We used to have a bad habit of I was a bad habit for Kris, I'm sure, but they'd be having a tournament somewhere, and I'd just be out fishing for fun, and I'd be sending him pictures of 5-pounders and a full live well, and I knew he wasn't having a good day.
You're not that guy, Danny. You're not
remember,
that guy. Don't tell me you're that guy.
Yeah, he was that guy. Danny, remember that time when I got my PB largemouth on that St. Mary's event? Carrie Paquette and I were fishing it together. I sent it to you. I was so stoked. Scotty, this thing is 24 inches long. Just a pig of a largemouth. And I had just broke 2 off before that and had seen them, and we're fishing in ultra shallow, clear water. It was a bit overcast, raining a little bit, but I could see these big ass largemouth, pardon my language, swimming around in the shallows. And I pitch out and I hook this thing. And as it got to the boat, Carrie just barely got the net up under it, and I flipped it up into the boat and it landed in my lap. And I'm like, oh man, look at this thing. It was just vibrating, and it was a 7-pound, 11-ounce largemouth in the St. Mary's River. And I sent a picture to Danny. He said, how big do you think this? He goes, it's maybe 6 pounds. I said, I didn't weigh it, but I'll let you know at the end of the day because I'm not weighing it. It's not getting called out. But it was a 7-pound, 11-ounce largemouth. And as far as I know, that was one of the biggest largemouth caught in a bass tournament in Ontario to date. I don't know what the stat is on that exactly, but I did a little looking around, and yes, there's probably been some 7-pounders caught, but that's a near 8-pound largemouth bass. Post spawn fish too, so she was a little thin. I couldn't imagine what that fish would have been like in the fall. Man, it would have been an absolute monster. Yeah.
Dan and I have talked at great length in regards to what the future holds when it comes to tournament trails, events like yours, derbies, this, that, and everything else. What do you see, Kris, as the biggest stumbling block to further the success and foster the passion for angling through these derbies so that we have these grassroots events available to the next generation of anglers or people that just, as I said, they want to get out fishing competitive? Because at the end of the day, I think most anglers, if not all, they have a competitive nature. So they want the ability to participate in things like this. But going forward, what do you see as some of the struggles, and perhaps maybe you have some solutions to those struggles?
The biggest one, and obvious, the elephant in the room, guys, is volunteers, right? Let's be honest, these things don't run without volunteers. They're the cogs in the wheel. If you don't have people driving that, you're not going to have the venue. You're not going to have the series. So people stepping up, willing to offer their help, if you're passionate about it, I would highly recommend that, but please do it with the mindset that it's thankless, that you're going to spend time. And I'm not trying to make it sound like, please don't do it. Trust me, it's rewarding, but it is thankless. Don't do it for thanks. That's not what you're going to get fed on this menu. You have to do it with the right mindset and the passion in mind that you are doing it as a steward of the sport, that you're trying to foster some passion in individuals because that's one that you have, a fire that you have. It gives you a segue for a positive outlet and giving back. So, I think that's like the biggest one for me, the setback. The other one sometimes can be, just getting the schedules figured out, everybody's schedules and trying to make everybody happy. That's impossible. We know that, but we do our best in order to provide, a platform that works as best for everybody in their schedules. just some takeaways from that. Sometimes there's too many events and not everybody can attend them. So, I've given some thought down the road, maybe potentially we need to narrow it down to less events and add a little more entry fee to it, and really build up the relationship with the sponsors and the community partners.
Great remedies. Dan, did you want to add to that?
No, I think you touched on a lot of good things, especially in that grassroots section. And when you go to like volunteering, I mean, it's like showing up. If you can't fish the event or whatever, volunteer. You'll get a lot of information. You meet everybody, and that energy will suck you in eventually, because it's a lot of fun being around tournaments, especially when people are competing, and even there's just trash talking at the end of the day. Just listen to everybody go on, stuff like that. And we all have quite a few friends of ours. Like Nick, who can run his mouth pretty good on a good day. No, I mean, it's a lot of fun, stuff like that. Like he says, we all want to brag as anglers. So like, he's during a tournament, he caught a big bass and he's sending me a picture of that during a tournament, or when I'm out just fishing for fun and he's fishing a tournament, I'm telling him, look how good of a day I'm having. I hope you're having a better day, kind of thing, and we're always kind of busting each other's balls in a sense like that. And it doesn't matter whether you're in an elite tournament or in a grassroots one, the atmosphere is always the same. I find everybody's acting the same way, everybody's talking the same way, we're all treating each other the same way. Cost is always a big thing, and that's always been our hurdles in a sense like that. It's not registration costs, but just actually fishing, actually running your boat, driving your vehicle out there. We all spend that. So that's where the grassroots tend to be more of an advantage to that aspect, because they're usually not as big as systems. There's not as much pre-fishing involved. People aren't. It's more fun, I guess, than seriousness. Trying to explain it the best way, but it's still a cost. I mean, me and Kris talked about that earlier today. Actually, just the shit we're talking about how much it's cost us and what we got in return, and the return is always a negative. When you at the end of the season, you do your math. You say, well, this is what I put out. This is what I got back. That's not why we do it. We do it because it's fun and we want to beat everybody else around us. And so we're lucky. I could easily, if I got time off, I can go jump into one of the circuits out in Kris's world, and where I can go fish out here and do all kinds of stuff. So we're very spoiled in that regards, right? And it's fun. I really do encourage a lot of people to check it out. Even if you just go down, go to marinas, go wherever they are being hosted, and check them out and get a feel for it.
It's a great point that you bring up, and Kris, I'm not sure that these events that you host can attest to this, but talking to Big Jim at great length, back in the day when tournament angling was going on, cost was a factor. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like it is now. So, for instance, if you're in the top 10 of let's say the NOWT, 10 years ago when gas prices were where they were, cost of living was where it was. If you were in the money, you were doing really well. You were in the black. Now it is tough. It's tough for these tournament trails to entice people to come far distances, to participate in these tournaments, because, the buy-in, as you both have said, it's great. And it fosters that passion, and it gives you that competitive nature and that competitive ability to compete with other anglers. But as I said, the gap is shortening, and unfortunately, when it comes to being in the money, doesn't necessarily mean you're doing really well financially and even covering your costs. I know I've spoken to some anglers from the NOWT that have done well this year, and they're just breaking even. So yeah, that is an issue. Cost is definitely the elephant in the room. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's awesome that you are doing what you're doing now. With these events, how many participants do you typically have involved?
So yeah, it's variable. Like we have them up and down, anywhere from 25, 30 people, up to 60, 70 people will come out for every event. So it's not huge, but it's still a lot of fun. You know what I mean? You get enough personalities out there to make it a challenge and also a lot of fun. So
that's awesome.
Do you see a pickup, like in the beginning of the season? You see a higher numbers as opposed to the fall or mid-season dip or anything like that?
Good point, Danny. Good question. I have to say that our earlier part of the year is better attended. It always has been. up until about midsummer, and then it slowly starts to decline. And for whatever reason or another, everybody spending more time with the family. That in terms of what we have for our participants, the dynamic seems to be a lot of families. So yeah, very much so. I would say earlier on.
Now, am I going to assume that you still have spots available for this weekend's event, Kris, if people
Most
wanted to
definitely.
reach out?
Yes, absolutely. If anybody wants to come out to Lake Matinenda, we have quite a few spots available. It's open. There's tons of water to fish, tons and tons of bass crawling around that lake. It's definitely a beautiful spot. Bruce Spratt take good care of you over there, even if you need accommodations at Lake Matinenda campground there. He's excellent. So I'd encourage anybody. Now it's a 2-day event, so the entry fee is $200. And then we also have Reiko Automotive and Small Marine that just recently opened in Sault Ste. Marie sponsoring the event, as well as myself and these other great sponsors we have that have been so good to us all year. This is Trading Post, Great Lakes Outfitters, Tunnel Lake Trading Post, Tackle the North, Rusty Jonka Services, Cliff Printing that does all of our media marketing, and Steel River Company as well. One of our anglers, Cody Slumsky, he gives hair jigs out to all the kids at the launch and stuff like that at the end of the day. So yeah, by all means, if anybody wants to come out and try your luck on Lake Matinenda, I'll tell you what, if you don't catch bass out there, you got a problem, but you should be able to do just fine.
That's awesome.
If I'm not
Sorry,
mistaken,
go ahead,
Kris,
Ben.
this is probably the last. Sorry, this is probably the last bass tournament in the North Shore, like from like North Bay to the Sioux. Like if you want to fish bass, this is your last crack at anything, right? I don't think. I think
Yeah,
everything's finished last weekend, eh?
yeah, we used to host them even in October because as it truly gets to fall, despite what anybody thinks, once the air and water temperature starts getting down below 50 degrees Fahrenheit or in the low 50s, bass gorge themselves in the fall. So it can be an awesome bite. And I think too that's part and parcel leading into your earlier comment about how participation is earlier in the year. The pre-spawn and post-spawn events are pretty good for bass feeding. That cooler water, they're very active, and they're trying to put on the feed bag for the spawn and then recuperating after the spawn. It seems to be they bite really good.
That's awesome. Any predictions for this weekend, Kris? What size bag, what weight do you think is going to take this event this weekend?
So despite my talk about Matinenda putting out a lot of bass, there are a lot of small bass in that lake. And it's been just summer temperatures. So like we've been, high 20s and even into the 30s for a while. So water temps are still in the low and mid 70s. Even in this big lake, you might get out in the middle of the lake and it'd be 70 degrees. So you'll probably see the biggest bag this weekend over 2 days will probably be about 32 pounds. Somebody that does well, over the 2-day span, so a 16-pound average. Somebody will find probably a 17 to 18-pound bag the first day, or perhaps the second day. But you're going to see likely, a mid 30-pound, tops bag. That'll win it. And a big fish, somebody always comes in with a 5 to 6 pound bass. It's one of those lakes that has a lot of pelagic bait fish in it, so the fish do that. And it's a tough bite to dial in, but you can be an absolute god if you can stumble on that school busting bass or find that active feeding school that are chasing herring and get every fish is going to be over 4 pounds, and you can go cast for cast for cast, 4 to 6 pound smallmouth and roll in with a 20-pound plus bag or 25-pound plus bag. So yeah, that's there. It's very difficult and it's very short window as well as to when it happens. I think a lot of these fish feed in the early morning and late at night and even into the evening because they can use the cloak of darkness and this gin clear water to feed.
I think too with the full moon activity we've been having, that's changed that entire bite window to more of a nocturnal bite, and
Yep.
they're using that to their advantage, I think.
Yep, I think you're bang on there. So it could be a challenging bite, but those people who adapt and utilize some of the shallow bite that could be really good in there, a little bit more predictable stuff, and hunt down a few big fish. I think they'll be the victors.
That's awesome.
I
Could you round
personally,
off
I personally,
half a dozen anglers that you think will be in the top 10 in your opinion, Kris?
Sorry, I kind of had lost you there. It was a little broke up.
Okay. In terms of the anglers that are going to be participating, could you give us like half a dozen that you think are going to be in the top 10 that we should be watching for when it comes to day one and final day results?
Yeah, for sure. The hometown favorite there on the lake that won it there earlier this year, Bruce and Cody Spratt. They're definitely going to be, right up there in the top three, unless they get caught sleeping or someone's got a faster boat to get to their primary starting point. If they have a crystal ball as to where they're starting, I would say that they're going to be one of the fan favorites there, no doubt. And hats off to them. And then likely my buddies Kevin Bondarchuk and Adam Baggs, they'll be pulling in some fat sacks of bass out there. The Maitland boys too, Bruce and Eric, they're local favorites there as well. But there's a few teams that are I think going to be silent assassins rolling in there that can make some magic happen and stumble onto that big magical school of fish that are going to stick to the smallmouth game, because the smallmouth are by on average the biggest bass in that lake for sure. There's huge largemouth, but they're few and far between. There's spots that I know that are dialed in with a lot of smaller largemouth, but you got to weed through about 20 or 30 of them to get a good one. The only reason I'd had myself in the top one, because I'd always top three bet on myself, so I'm unable to make it this weekend, unfortunately. Just we have too many family obligations going on. My son playing hockey, playing a hockey. My daughter into the competitive cheer, and she's been busy as heck doing that too. And we're just pedal to the metal here with work too. We're working on my day job. We're working on some massive renovations, multi-million-dollar renovations in the arena that I manage during the day. So I have a lot of projects underway here. So I warned the committee that there would be a time where I might not be able to attend, and I was hoping it wouldn't have been this one because I've attended every single other one throughout the year, and it just so happened that the schedules just haven't aligned for me right now. But I got a great team. I got a great team behind me there that will be there to run it. Kevin and Adam, and then I'm hoping that Phil, Joe, and Josh can show up, give a hand there, and that would be awesome.
Sweet. Dan, I got to ask you, you're a multi-species angler, and you might be known more maybe for your walleye prowess, but you do like to catch your bass as well. This time of year, is it obvious the answer? Which bass is easier to catch? Is it largies? Is it smallies? Or it doesn't matter?
I'm a smallmouth guy. I actually don't have many opportunities for largemouth. It's very rare for me to get a largemouth. So I can find smallmouth. I was out fishing today and this afternoon, and I got into some. So they seem to be pretty easy to find. They tend to live their lives very similar to a walleye, so we tend to have to deal with them anyways. So targeting is a lot of fun. I grew up chasing them as well.
That's awesome, Kris. What about you? Is this well, I guess it's early fall, but is the fall bite more of a smallmouth bite, or are largies still as active as well?
Personally, myself, because it's a 2-day event, I would focus 3/4 of my time on the largemouth bite right now because of summer pattern. And I could confidently say that I could get a good 13 pounds of largemouth to start my day, and get the jitters out essentially, and feel confident, and maybe mix in a big largemouth, and then kind of go hunting for big bass in general after that. I may stumble into some big smallmouth, big largemouth in the same spots and some of the locations that I have out there. I would lay all my money, 3/4 of it, on a largemouth bite to win for the Derby this weekend.
And I have to say, we experienced it in the Sioux when it comes to weather changes. And I don't think there's a single, you could be studying weather all your life. I don't think anybody and their mother would have predicted the week we've just had and the weather that we're currently experiencing. But this is all going to come to an end at some point. There's no way we can go on like this. It's crazy. Um, hopefully you don't have the weather extremes that we experienced in the Sioux. I do believe that same weekend, North Bay received some flurries. I know, it's a blasphemy, and I shouldn't mention it in September that anybody got snow, but I don't know what the weather prediction is for that area this weekend. But do you see the weather possibly playing into the results of the event?
Sunburns.
Yeah. It's gonna play into the event being very warm. The ones that can manage their health and their hydration and their endurance will be the ones that'll prevail unless they capitalize first thing in the morning.
And low winds too, so that's gonna affect those fish for sure.
Well, this is it, and again, there's nothing to justify what's happening right now in terms of our weather. I mean, people would suggest that it the typical Indian summers, as we've said in September's, it's typical.
Yep.
But this is an elongated. If it is an Indian summer, it's certainly gone longer than any Indian summer I've ever seen or experienced in the past. And the unfortunate thing is, with all extremes, there is a mirrored extreme as well, and we're all waiting and hoping for a great hard water season, because we didn't really get one last year. And those who do love their hard water, and of course, Junction Tackle is always there for all of its all your hard water wishes and wants. And anything upcoming that you wanted to mention about Junction Tackle that we should know about, Kris?
So I had a bit of a lull there in the move from last December up until April to make my small migration from the big town of Thessalon into Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. We were we were spending way too much time on the road and stuff, so we needed to migrate the family up to where most of the activities are happening. So there's going to be a lot of junction tackle, a lot of junction jigs being placed on shelves and stores. Randy, how's it going, brother? Keep your eyes out for that. I'm coming at the tackle world big time in the jig world. I am the jig guy in Northern Ontario, so I know a lot of guys know who I am, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm confident in doing what I'm doing, and it's become a family business too. So my wife Marin and my son and daughter both help behind the scenes silently, and they spend some nice packaging and putting together jigs and everything. And actually cool, my son the other night was in the shop with me, poured his first 200-300 jig heads and stuff like that, and those are placed on the shelf at Moxie's Bait and Tackle this week, and in anglers' hands, and out in the water. So that's a pretty cool feeling thinking about that. So like
Awesome.
Currently right now, we're just ramping up. So it's going to be a big year in 2025 for Junction Tackle.
That's awesome. Danny, I know you use Junction Tackle as well. Is there any keepsakes or anything you'd like to share that you can share, you're willing to share, that are must-haves in our tackle box?
Well, absolutely. The biggest walleye in my life, which weighed 15 and a quarter, was caught on a Junction Tackle jig. Just a good old-fashioned half-ounce ball head jig that Kris makes. I think he called that the North Channel Killer, if I'm not mistaken, that color.
North Channel Nailer.
Nailer, that's what it was. Yeah. I've been using this product. I still got a boat full. I don't go through a lot of jigs for some reason. Guys burn through them. I don't. But they hold on. I've caught a lot of 30-inch walleye on them. I do swear by them. They're fantastic, and we all use them. All the guys up here. But they're tough. The finish on them is ridiculous. Like I said, I've got jigs in that box that have probably been there for 2 years, and they still got the paint on them.
So when Danny and I used to sneak out together, I lived at Thessalon, we'd get out in the water a little bit more just in his rig and stuff. I would always stash jigs in compartments in his boat. And he would call me up. He's like, "Hey, I found your stash in my boat," and it would be like, like 5 dozen jigs in a bag in a corner in the back of his boat when he wasn't looking, because I'd have them in my bibs, and because he never wanted to take money for gas. So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna fix this guy," So I would just stuff jigs in compartments of his boat all over the place, and probably wondering why am I losing miles an hour here? What's going on? Freaking Bain's throwing 10 pounds of jigs in my boat again.
That's
So,
hilarious.
but
Hey, the barter system is alive and well, folks. I mean, you Brad
yes,
Norris, who's on here, and I'm sure there's others. You know, the barter system it works, and you should, if you have the ability to use it. It's something that I embrace. I mean, you know, nobody really likes to accept cash, even though everybody needs it. It can get awkward. So when you can hand them a bag of tackle, or you know, an LCBO or Tim Hortons card or whatever, it goes a long way. But
yeah,
to your point, it gives back in a way that, you know, it says thanks. And I think that is something that I truly love about the you northern anglers that I see, especially on full display with the NOWT. I love the anglers. I love how they conduct themselves. Yes, they all want to win, and yeah, they might have you know, a certain ego or determination to get that win. But at the end of the day, like, if boats are broken, folks are running out of tackle, things happen, everybody's there to help. And it's not to say that that doesn't happen everywhere. I just see it more often than not with you northern anglers. So tip of the hat to all of you.
Kind of touch on that point, actually. Like, I don't know if it's just a northern angler thing. It's just that everybody that I know, we all want to beat each other at our best. We don't want to beat you on a technicality or like that. So I'd rather help you out. If I come second, I came second because I wasn't good enough, not because of any other reason, right? So I've been very fortunate. Everybody that's in my circle that I fish against or call friends, they're all like that. And as for the jigs in the boat, well, I'm going fishing anyways. That's why I never take gas. I'm going to burn the gas no matter what. So
that's awesome.
that's what you always said, buddy.
It sounds rehearsed. I'm not gonna lie.
Man, I'm telling you, it's the truth. And Danny is a freaking fish magnet, man. He can find them.
That's
He
awesome.
can find them.
Not during the tournament. I can't see the dirt on tournament.
You're getting better, man. You're getting better. I told you. I knew you would get there.
I will say this: after meeting Dan and seeing him, do his pre-fishing and also his competing in the tournament. If pre-fishing was tournament time, this guy would have crowns, belts, and a mantle full of trophies. Because I'll tell you, he is an awesome pre-fisher.
Yes, that's the title. That's the title, right? That's like Nick always teases me. So you're the only guy who catch 30 inches that can't win a tournament. I'm like, oh, that's helpful, but he's not wrong.
Well, hey, listen, Nick's always there to remind us of all our faults, right? That's why. That's
absolutely.
That's the whole thing.
Humble pie Huxon.
I like that. Yeah. Humble pie, exactly. And everybody gets a second helping, whether they want it or not. Kris, this has been awesome. Of course, let's get back to what is going to be happening this weekend. And of course, if there are spots available, people perhaps have wiped their slate clean, something got canceled and they want to attend. How do they get involved and who do they contact?
Absolutely. Give me a shout on Facebook if you want, guys, or you can email algomabass@gmail.com. My phone number is also on this poster too. Anybody does want to reach out to me via my personal cell. You can look up the Algoma North Shore Bass Series on Facebook as well. We've got a page on there, a group that's 1.1K followers. All are welcome. Please bring the family out. The weather's going to be gorgeous. Why don't you book a cabin at Camp Matinenda Campground? Come out and enjoy the beautiful fishery, guys. Everybody's welcome.
That's awesome. Danny, any last words before we wrap up?
No, Kris has said it all, man. I told you he's a talker. He's going to take it all up for me here. So
that's awesome.
I think just really, I mean, the last touch of summer, get out there, enjoy that weather, and there's nothing better than a bass tournament. And I have fished Matinenda. There is a ton of bass in the system, and if you're going in and just having fun, you're easily going to probably put about 10 pounds, so you're going to be in the mix. You're one fish from having a good time. So there's a lot of fish there, and it's not hard to find those fish, really.
That's awesome. Kris, as always, dude, I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you bring to the fishing industry. And of course, you portray this incredible positivity that this industry desperately yearns for. So keep up the great work. Of course, all of the stuff that you're doing with Junction Tackle, we'll be keeping an eye on that. And when we do bring the Made in Canada Tackle Show to the North Country, we will make sure that we reach out to you. But in the meantime, good luck with your family events. Good luck to all the participants in this weekend's event. Hope everybody's safe and catches huge bags of bass.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate everything. Thank you. Have a great night.
Right on.
Thank you, man.
All righty. So that wraps up our show. Dan, as always, pleasure having you. We look forward to doing this again. And of course, if you do have a derby, you do have an event, any kind of tournament that you just want to get a little bit more limelight, a little bit promotion, whether it be for the anglers, for the event itself, or your sponsors, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. Yeah, this is the Power Hour. Of course, we're going to be discussing further tournaments, further derbies with my good friend, Danny Bacon. Until then, have yourselves a great night. Peace.